Today, we're showcasing all the ways you can automate with Inflectra, with a key emphasis on our Rapise product, which is our codeless test automation product. The latest release, Rapise 9.0, which is already on our website for free trial, offers now full self-healing. And we're going to show you what that means during the demo. And I guess for those who have joined, who've never come across automated testing before or have heard of it and don't have it, curious to learn why you need automated testing. I guess nowadays with the complexity of the different systems you have in-house or offshored, there's a lot of permutations to ensure that nothing breaks. Whether it's an SAP Oracle implementation, a Salesforce implementation, or even a Dynamics implementation, Rapise allows you to build the libraries, even on SAP, Tech One, custom ERP systems. You can build a library, a framework library that remembers where you last left off and execute testing at scale and high volume intensity with the different permutations around browsers and device combinations to save you time. It also helps you do testing at speed, so ensuring that nothing breaks between sprints or updates or milestones from even third-party software. So every time your ERP system does an update, making sure none of your custom code breaks and having that test cycle done so that QA is no longer the bottleneck to going live with a release. The data accuracy, using a product for test automation directly live synced with your application lifecycle management platform or tool or SDLC, you have the ability to ensure manual data entry is no longer needed. Everything's live synced, and Rapise, as I said, remembers where you last left off. And if you have Spira, because many of you are also existing customers using Spira Test, Spira Team, or Spira Plan, you have Rapise native to Spira being the engine that handles the large scale of volume at speed. So think of Rapise as the horsepower to your Spira, and Spira being your standard operating platform for requirements, test tasks, risk mitigation, and reporting. So today I've got Adam joining to show you how there's 3 key ways we help you automate. Inflectra AI, some of you on this webinar have Inflectra AI, may not have been using it at scale. How does Inflectra AI help you generate requirements, test tasks, risk analysis, and predict risks at scale using AWS-backed data sovereign, often data sovereign AI with unlimited tokens. And our key focus of the demo today will be on the Rapise 9.0 version. And I see Jeff on the call from Land Registration Authority, helping the Philippines government modernize 20 years worth of legacy systems at speed and having benchmarked results of 70% time and effort savings on testing and development, which is great to see. We also have a case study. If you click on that link or go to our website, you'll see from Telstra International having improved test coverage for their Salesforce ERP updates at 80%. And this was before AI was introduced into Rapise. And then we will show you SureWire, our latest product launch that happened on the 8th of April, which is using Agentic AI to test Agentic AI. And we'll give you a sneak peek of that as well if you haven't seen it yet. It's currently in beta mode and is free. You just need to go to SureWire.ai to try it out yourself. We're currently looking for market feedback. And yes, if you haven't heard of Inflectra before, we've been in the QA industry for 20 years and use AWS for SaaS as well as AI. And so you have enterprise-grade systems powered by enterprise-grade cloud and AI. And why specifically Rapise? I guess if you have high volumes of testing that need to be done or frequent testing that needs to be done on regression and manual testing, this will help you reduce the cost of that, whether it's reliance on developers because Rapise is code free. So you free your developers to do other more exciting things than repetitive tasks of manual testing. And it significantly reduces maintenance costs overall through the speed at which Rapise handles the volume of testing. It improves your end-to-end traceability, given Rapise is native to Spira, but we do have customers using Rapise on ADO and with Azure test plans, with Jira, with other products out in the market that we compete with as far as the Spira product goes. Optimized cost of ownership. If you compare costs, Rapise is $332 a month per user, and it can float on Spira and use activated as if it was concurrent licensing with unlimited named users to the threshold of licensing you've purchased. And we also have Rapise as an on-prem product, so it is a desktop product that allows you to have full on-prem ownership. The data sovereignty, as I mentioned, and enterprise compliance that comes with Inflectra. So for regions like Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, full data sovereignty there for all of the AI. That is unlimited token usage baked inside of Rapise. And comprehensive cross-platform support. Rapise tests allows you to execute across web, mobile, API, legacy desktop applications like Citrix apps and mainframe, and unified cross-environment workflow. So you can test across web, mobile, desktop, APIs, and legacy systems with memory. Detailed execution reporting and metadata for the reporting retrieval and the scheduling. That all happens inside of Spira, but Rapise allows the direct connection to Spira for all of that triaging. And the versatility of test creation, you have the ability to have no code, simply type English, or code using JavaScript for those developers who want to set up their own custom-built applications inside of Rapise. The Telstra case study also shared some buy benefits, I guess, of having to not have to hire developers and lean on developers for the ongoing maintenance of their Salesforce coming off Selenium. It was also a more secure environment as well. Sample use cases, besides maintaining legacy and ERP systems, handling bulk regression testing, CI triggers, and pushing code to repositories like GitHub, GitLab, catching bugs before they become incidences, and taking minutes instead of weeks or even seconds now, with data-driven testing as well, feeding into different sets of data for common scenarios that can be all on repeat within seconds. So I'm going to hand over to Adam to show you just how easy it is to use Inflectra AI, show you the full self-healing benefits of Rapise, and a little hint of SureWire.
So first thing we'll be talking about a little bit is Inflectra AI in Spira, and then we'll talk about test automation, how we're using AI to really speed up automation and do self-healing. And then after that, we've got a sneak peek over here of SureWire, our beta version of our new agentic testing tool. But first of all, for those, again, who are not as familiar, Spira is the central hub for quality. It is the application lifecycle management solution, and everything that we do around quality and traceability ultimately lives here. When we start to talk about using Rapise for test automation, all the results, all the information will feed back into Spira. It's also the source of all the context and intent. So as you start to move towards an agentic AI future, what's more and more important is understanding the logic, the business context, all the information around an application that's being developed or being tested, and Spira is that hub of information. And with connective tissue like MCP servers now, we can join these things up really easily. But let's see how that would work in practice. Just to give you a flavor, let's say we were starting a brand new project, a greenfield application, where we want to be able to start an application and generate some requirements and do some analysis. So how would we do that? Well, using the power of AI, I can go into Spira, I can create a brand new product. So let me go ahead and do that. And let's go ahead and say we're going to create a new, online banking application. So if we were to create a new application that looks something like that, we can use that application. We can turn on baselining. We'll build a new application. And now, using the power of AI, we can do some initial work that would have originally been taking a significant amount of time before we even get into test automation. You got to do test planning. You've got to do requirements analysis. And one of the things we know is if requirements are well written, it really improves the quality of the downstream testing. If we're going to generate test cases, whether automated or manual, from something, that source information has to be high quality. If your requirements aren't well written, the AI is going to struggle just like a human would. So let's go ahead and start with an example where we've got a new online banking application and we have an initial requirement, which would be, as a user, I want to be able to, manage my banking, my banking needs online, something like that. I can take that high-level epic in the agile world, and I can use the power of AI to build out a backlog. So let's go ahead and build a backlog from that. So it's going to take that high-level requirement, and it's going to build out a backlog. So let it do that. There we go. And I should warn you tonight, my home internet went down an hour before the webinar, which is a risk. But luckily, I have mitigation, which was my 5G hotspot. So always good to plan ahead and have backup mitigations. So as you can see here, it's built out my product backlog. And I can see my transaction history. I can play my bills online, set up alerts. It started to help me build out my business context. If I click on one of these, as a user, I want to pay my bills online. So imagine we've got this new functionality. It's a greenfield application. How would we go about testing it? How would we go about developing it? And obviously, before we even start doing any of those things, is this requirement itself even a good requirement? Is it sufficiently detailed to build an application? If I was going to give it to Claude Code, could it build something useful from this? Or is it too high level and vague? So using AI with Inspire as part of the business analyst role, we can use AI here to, first of all, improve our application. So we can, first of all, view the requirement and improve it. And it's given us a rating. Here's how we think the requirement is. It's a 3 out of 5. It's got some good points. It's defined the user, it's defined the functionality and the benefit. So it's got a clear user benefit value statement. It doesn't have a lot of details about payment statuses. It's not very specific. It doesn't give a lot of detail, not enough to probably build or test an application credibly. And so we could obviously use, humans to do some of the rewriting of it. We could create a review task, we could document this, or we can just have AI actually help us and not just find the problem, but actually fix it for us. So we're going to use some AI here to actually improve the requirement. Here you can see it's gone from being 2 sentences to a significantly more complex requirement with details around scheduling, statuses, and so on. And if I go into my history, you can see it's rewritten the requirement, added more information to it. So using AI, I can take that high-level requirement, generate it, and improve it. Now, obviously, I've used AI to write the requirement. I've used AI to review it. That's AI reviewing itself. So in most cases, I'd probably want a human to review what the AI wrote, and I'd have the AI review what a human wrote. Once you've got a requirement that's well written, you can then use AI to go further and do things like the next action. I can build out test cases for it. How do we test this bill payment functionality? So let's generate some test cases. So it's going to generate 10 different test cases with a combined total of about 31 steps. And as Camille mentioned, as well as the creating of the test cases, which are right here, we'll look at them in a second. Here they are. I also might want to think about, well, what risks could happen? Bill payments are important. If a bill doesn't get paid, obviously I can get in trouble with my utility. So it's an important piece of functionality for a consumer banking application. So using the risk analysis functionality, I can only look at my different test cases, which are right here. I can also look at the potential risks, like an inadequate authentication, vulnerabilities. And so using the power of AI, I can look at one of these. Let's say, take a test case. How do we verify a secure login? How do we execute payment? How do we add a scheduling? Let's see visual inspection of a payment interface. Let's look at that test case. So we've got some different tests. And here's an example of a test case. You can see right here, it's got a couple of steps. Not super exciting. Let me look at one maybe it's a bit more involved. That's a better one here. Here's one which got both actions and some sample data, and it can build out the initial flow. So here we've used AI Inspire to basically build out a initial test plan and identify some initial risks. Now, again, this is fairly basic functionality, but now using the same AI, we can then pop over into our automation tool and begin to do things with test automation. And more importantly, as our application starts to evolve, how do we use AI to really reduce the maintenance burden? Because this is obviously a if you look at this app, this manual test here, as a manual tester, I can follow the steps here very easily. If the application changes, or if I haven't even seen the application before, it's relatively easy for me as a human to adapt. And the typical problem has been, as a human, I could run through these steps, all of the different steps, all these test cases. I mean, there's 10 test cases, 31 steps. I could run through all these as a human and be very, adaptable. I could read the instruction, I can go through the test, but it takes a lot of time. And as we talked earlier in the presentation, the key with test automation is I can now execute the same tests over and over and over again without the laborious nature of doing it manually. The problem has been is that as soon as you change the application, I've got to rebuild the tests. And unlike a human, at least historically, automated testing has been very brittle. And if the tests change, the test doesn't run anymore. So then you end up going from saving you time to spending more time. So that's one of the big problems of test automation historically, but that's where AI is really coming in to make a big difference. And in the latest release of our Rapise automation tool, we've now got the ability to self-heal an application, which means when an application changes, Rapise can now automatically adapt rather than requiring you as the test automation engineer do it for it. Okay, so that's some of the functionality in Spira. Again, the focus of today's demo is really on Rapise. So just want to show you AI is in Spira. You can write the test cases using Spira. You can build out the backlog. You can even do the risk analysis. Once you've done all that, then you're going to hop over here to Rapise, which is right here. And Rapise is closely integrated with Spira. So if that's another thing to mention is the entire Inflectra suite is closely integrated. So when you're working in Rapise to do test automation, it's not like you have to go download test cases, find them, and do something like that. It's all a central operating environment. So if I open up Rapise, I go to my Spira dashboard, and I can browse the exact same projects over here in Rapise. I can access the same test cases, the test sets, the test runs. I can access everything I need from within Rapise. Or if I hop back over into Spira, I can do the same thing as well. So you can work in either environment. And that sharing information makes it really easy to use both tools together. You can do scheduling in one, execution in the other, or vice versa. And the other nice thing is everything in Rapise gets version controlled in Spira seamlessly for you. So let's take an example and to show the self-healing in action. So let's start with that. Then I'll talk more about some of the frameworks and the ERP and the libraries that we have next. But just to show you the headline feature, which we added in 9.0, which is self-healing. So let's say we're going to start testing, and we have this sample application over here in Chrome. This is our library information system. It's a sample app that we have. You can go to libraryinformationsystem.org online. It's publicly hosted, and anyone can play around with it. It's a great testing app where you're learning the tool. It's designed to be testable, and you can log in and create books, create authors, do all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and create a simple test. So to do that, I go ahead and say create new test framework, and I'm going to connect to Spira, and I'll call this, webinar framework 2. And one thing to note is Rapise is very, very flexible. I'm showing you some web testing today, but you can also use it for desktop. You can use it for mobile. For web, we support all the major browsers. For mobile, we support Android, iOS, native, and mobile web, including Flutter apps. I haven't got mobile running today on my machine, but we will do another webinar, and we have some recorded YouTube videos if you want to see mobile in action. And then desktop, we can support multiple different desktop technologies. We can even mix the two. So if you've got a situation where you've got a web app running, but you want to download a file to your desktop, do something in the file like Excel, upload it back, or do something in another application, you can mix and match the different technologies. For today, I'll start with web. If we have time, I'll show you some of the other technologies as well, but let's start with web. Okay, now one thing to notice, you've got this new feature in 9.0, the AI recorder. This is for self-healing. This is the new functionality that allows Rapise to automatically fix a test when the test changed. If you don't want to use that feature, you can just uncheck it right here. Okay, so it's now building my framework. This is the framework in Rapise, and initially it's got pretty much nothing in it. It's got test cases, and it highlights the box in red. You see that. That's that I know I have to add a test case. So let's go ahead and add a test case. And we're going to pretend we're going to create a test. Well, we're going to do it, but we're going to pretend to log in to this application, and we're going to create a new book in the app. So let's go ahead and create a test case for creating a book. So create new book, something like that. Notice it's got the AI recorder tag set. These are the different tags you have. You can tag your test cases for different reasons. So you might have a test case that you want to skip because maybe the application is not available yet, or that part of it is not available. You can create a test case and then later just skip it or mark it as draft. In this case, we're tagging it with AI recorder so that it knows we want to use the AI functionality for healing it. Create. And as we mentioned earlier, Rapise is predominantly a codeless or low-code tool. We do have the option of doing things in code as well, so you can actually have the best of both worlds. And now it's going to build my test. So this is my test canvas. This is my canvas. There's nothing in it right now. And this is my first test case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a test. Now, Rapise supports many different ways of building tests. You can record them, you can learn them, you can use AI to create them, lots of different ways. I'm going to show you a simple situation of self-healing. So we'll start with the basics. So let's go ahead and record. So I hit the record button, hit OK, and you should hopefully see in a second. Right here, this is the application I'm going to be testing right here on this box. On the bottom right is the recording dialog. That's going to capture my actions. And over here behind me is Spyro, which we don't really want to worry about. So I'm just to make it a bit clearer, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to minimize everything here on my desktop so you just don't get confused. Okay, so then I'm going to resume. And now I'm going to log into the application. I'm going to log in with a username and password. I'll do it slowly. And log in. Okay, and I want to go create a book. So let's go ahead and create a book. And notice on the right, it's capturing everything. And at this point, this is just normal recording. We're not using any AI functionality. If you'd seen me do a demo a year ago, you'd have seen the exact same thing and you'd say, no big deal. So in case if that's what you're thinking, that's intentional right now. This is just doing things the old-fashioned way to record a test. So let's go ahead and create a book, Adam's book. We'll just do that. And then we'll log out. So very simple. Logged in, created a book, logged out. Very easy. Okay, hit finish. So I'm going to just go ahead here and hit finish. Now, one thing to notice, if you've seen this before, is it's doing something different. It's saying at the bottom encoding. Now, what it's doing is, as well as saving my test, it's also asking AI to take the definition of what we just did, the business context, and store that with the test. And this is one of the new things. Now, it does take about a minute to do that. So it's going to take a little bit longer to save the test than normal. Depends on the time of day and how busy the models are. I'm also on my phone connection because my internet's down at home. So it's going to be a little bit slower than normal as well. So bear with me on that. Now, what I'll mention while it's doing that, what's really important is this encoding is taking not just the fact that I clicked on a button or clicked on a link, which it would have done before, it's adding in business context. It's storing with every single operation the intent behind it. Basically, why am I clicking on a button? Why am I clicking on something? Why did I do anything? And by storing that information with the test, it means it's got the ability now to recover that test when something changes. And it's basically allowing the AI to behave like a human, which is that if I gave a human those set of test cases we saw earlier, and I attempt to follow them, I could easily follow them. If I gave it to an automation machine, it would struggle. AI can do that, but AI needs to understand why are you doing what you're doing, and what is the intent behind it? It's not just a link you're clicking on. You're trying to log in, and that's really important. So we're storing that with the test. So while we're waiting for that to encode, any questions? I'm just gonna pop over to Zoom and see if we have any questions. Let's see. No questions so far. If you want to put them in the chat window or the Q&A window, we can get somewhere.
Yep, we've got a
Yeah, okay.
question.
Yeah, some questions. Yeah, see, perfect. Yeah. Is self-healing
Is self
also applicable? Oh, do you want to read out, Camille? That's great. Thank you. That'd be
is
great.
yeah, sure. Is self-healing also applicable to test cases written in JavaScript?
Yes. Self-healing will work in JavaScript or in RVL. I'm doing an RVL. I can show it to you as well in JavaScript as well. It is a little bit different. There's pros and cons. In RVL, it hides everything is connected to the object repository. In JavaScript, you have the option to actually have the the business intent written straight into the JavaScript as well. You don't necessarily even need the objects. So there's some differences in how it's implemented, but you can do self-healing in both JavaScript or in RVL. Next question I see. Do you wanna? I can get it if you want.
Yes, I
Can it
think it's
support?
yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, can it support Windows application of self-healing? Currently, my understanding of uh, currently the self-healing is only able to do web applications, just because of the way we implemented it using XPath and CSS. I believe that it should be possible in the future to add the ability to do other technology stacks as well. So the current implementation in version 9.0 only supports web, but doesn't have to be. And can self-healing be applied to test cases written in older versions of Rapise? Yes and no. The Let me explain. I'll show you why I say yes and no. So let's first of all. So what it did is, um, these are my tests. These are my steps, and this looks just like it would have done a year ago. I'm clicking on the username box. I'm clicking on the password box. I'm putting text in, and if you go to the objects over here, these are my objects. They look like they did before. There's the book. There's the link. There's the login link. There's the name. But there is a difference. If you go to it and you click on the what's it called, XPath. This is how we find it. So when you play this test, that's how Rapise, clicks on the link. It looks for a link inside a list on the page. This is traditional how Rapise worked. Now the problem is if the test changes, this doesn't work anymore. And that's why test automation has been so difficult, because every automation tool out there basically stores some variation of this information, which is, how do I click on that link? The problem is it doesn't say if that link is no longer a link, but it's a menu or it's a drop down or something completely different. But we're also now storing this information. This is what took the time. We're storing this information. This is the business context. It's describing in detail, but in a natural language format, what is that button, where it is, how does it relate to everything else on the screen? And this is going to be used for the visual testing. So when I did the recording, we're now recording the technical way to find something. That's without AI. That's deterministic playback. Runs fast, runs every time. But we're also storing the context as the second piece of information. So the question was, could you use self-healing with existing tests? Yes, I say no. Not by default, because they won't have this information. They'll be missing it. However, there is an option to run your existing test and add this information when it plays back. So that's why I say yes and no. So you have to basically use that you have to run Rapise and tell it, record this test, basically re-record this test, play the test like it was normal, and add the context. So it will play back and then add the encoding. So you just have to basically upskill your test, basically. And Rapise can do that for you. So you would need to go to your existing tests, and then you basically would tell it to play them and add the AI context during the playback. That way, the next time you play it, it can now be self-healed. So that's why there is an extra step you have to do. So with that modification, your tests are now self-healable. So hopefully that answers the question. Now, okay, so I've recorded the test. I'm going to just prove it works. I'm going to play it. Hit play, and it should hopefully pop up my window, and it's going to play the test. And there you go. It's playing it back. And again, this is a very simple test. I'm not doing anything special. It works, but just want to just prove it works. And of course, we could play it back with screen capture as well. We'll do that in a minute. But now, so what is self-healing? So the question would be, let's imagine a situation where I'm modernizing the application. So this is my library information system. It's pretty old. It's a .NET application from many years ago. It's kind of old looking. What about this new version of the app? It's another version of the app. We have an Angular one too. This is written in React. Now it's a completely different app. It literally is not the same app. There's nothing technical in common, but it does solve the same business problem. So if I gave you a manual test case that said, log in, create a book, save the book, log out. As a manual tester, I could follow that into any of these versions. I could do it for this version, the Angular version. There's basically 4 different versions here. There's a desktop version as well. I could follow all of those as a manual tester without any changes. The problem historically has been automated tests didn't have that level of flexibility. So let's try it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my existing tests and I'm going to just modify the test that I have. So if I go back to Rapise, I'm going to go into my test script and I'm going to just go up here and I'm going to change the URL. So actually, usually it saves the URL as the first action. I didn't do that, so it's easy enough. I'll just add navigator. Oops. Navigator, open URL, and I'll put the new URL in here. So I'm putting the different URL. So instead of having it opening the existing version, I'm opening the new version. And I'm then I do have to make one change, which is I need to comment out the very first action because there's no login page. I don't need to do that. So this is the same test we had before, and I'm now going to tell it to basically play against the new version of the app. So let's go ahead and also before I do that, I'm always paranoid about losing stuff, so I'm going to sync with Spira. So I'm going to basically version control before I do this self-healing. So I'm going to synchronize with Spira, and that's going to upload all my test cases up to my test management tool. So if for any reason I don't like the changes or don't want to make changes, I can always revert them back. So just good practice to do that. Okay, so upload everything to Spira.
Was that like
So
hitting the
again,
save button?
yeah, always like Control S, like always paranoid. Exactly. Just before you do anything. Okay, so now I've done that. I'm going to hit play. Okay, and hopefully it should work.
And
It's a
also run
demo.
in the background whilst you're
Yes.
doing other things.
Okay.
Whilst that's running, we've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
We'll work on web objects that are using regex.
Will it work on web objects that are using? So the question, so if you have a regex in the XPath, basically in the locator, so it doesn't rely on the locators at all. When it's using self-healing, well, I guess the traditional playback will try and find it using the traditional regex. If it can't find it, then it switches over to self-healing. And if you look, just to explain what it's doing, you may notice that it's very slowly navigating the application, and it has the red box around the different items. What it's doing is it first tries to find the object using the XPath or the where regex, whatever it is that you've got going on. And when it can't, it says at the bottom right, if you look very closely, it says looking for object book management. It says do web query. That's a vision query. It takes a screenshot of the whole page. It sends it to the LLM and says, can you find me this book management link? And notice that we don't have book management, we've got books. But it was able to understand that books and book management are syntactically the same thing. So not only is it finding things that are in different positions, it's finding completely different menu items. It's a completely different application. So when people talked about self-healing before, they meant, oh, I moved a button, I moved a label. We're talking here about a completely different application. But yet to a human, it's the same application. That's why I say it's logically the same application, but it's completely different. And in the real world, in the ERP and CRM world, it's like going from Salesforce to Salesforce Lightning. It does the same thing, create a contact, but it's completely different implementation. And that's the power of true self-healing, is that you can actually adapt to a major set of changes. And what it's doing is, again, it's using vision and it's using the AI vision model, the computer use, to find the object, relocate it, and then still act. So it did complete the test. It's 100% passed, but there's a problem. There is a problem, which is that it took a lot longer. The original run, I think, took about 10 seconds. This has taken about 2 minutes, 120 or so, 128 seconds. So it's a lot slower. No, that's not intrinsically a problem, but the other problem is it's using AI for every single operation, which is A, slower, but B, it's non-deterministic. So it uses vision to find everything, and it's using that context to find the test. I can't find this button. Here's the nearest button. And AI is, as we know, not 100% accurate every time. It's non-deterministic. That's why it's very good at finding things that don't exactly match. But you don't want to do that every single time because that makes your test less predictable. And so one of the things we want to be really careful of is not introducing false negatives or false positives. So we're using AI here to fix the test. We don't want to use AI to run every test because that's going to make your testing unpredictable. And the danger then is you will have a situation. So a good example would be, let's say you've got the application And let's say it wasn't that if let's say it wasn't that it was a different application, but let's say the menu was hidden. So let's say we go back here for a second and pretend like maybe the book menu link was missing. There's a bug in it. It's not a link, it's just a text. But down at the bottom somewhere, there's another link which you could use. Now, with self-healing, it could potentially find that link, click on it, continue the test. But as a business user, that's not as usable for your end users. You probably wouldn't consider that a pass. So that's why it's really important. You can't rely on the LLM by itself to run every test because it will find potentially difficult ways to solve the problem that still solve the problem, but would not be what your user would do. And so if your users are doing that, they're going to get frustrated. So again, testing is about
Mhm.
making sure the application works for your users. So we're using AI here to find how to test it. So that's
Mhm.
why once you've got the test that works like this one, there's one more thing, which is you need to review what it did. Again, it did the test, it found how to do everything. It does that using these image snapshots that it has. And then what it says is, well, here's everything that I did to make the test now runnable. And you review all this and you would then say, I agree with that because we've changed the application, these are valid changes. Or you might say, oh, there's a bug in the application. The fact that it had to do this major change to get the app to work wasn't planned, isn't expected. And in fact, whilst it's great that it could finish the test, it isn't what we want users doing. So again, you're now applying that human governance to it. And that's why I think it's really important when people say, oh, I'll have AI do everything for me. The danger is AI can solve the test, but maybe in a way that isn't actually what you as the business user or the product owner wants. So what we'll do here is
Couple more
I'm gonna,
questions.
oh, question, sorry, yeah.
We've got does self-healing trigger when using the navigator DOM find by XPath function in code, or does it only work when calling objects from the UI repository?
Because we've got the context stored in RVL mode, which is the codeless mode I'm in right now, because the object is being stored with that context, it will it needs that object context to be there, otherwise it doesn't have anything to fall back on. If you're using JavaScript mode, it can find it directly from the code that's written, and you can actually have what's called a smart object, where you can actually have the code like the navigator command and the description of text with it. So ultimately, it's about having that description of text, which it generates during the recording process. You could also add that text manually. So there are some other ways. In general, if you're using RVL, you need to use the objects. Now, we can talk about what we do with some of the future functionality in a minute. So let me finish the demo and come back to some of these because there's some functionality we're going to be adding in the next version, which will, I think, make some of that easier. But in
Mhm.
general, the best in RVL mode, when you're not using JavaScript, but you're using codeless, you do need to have objects because you do need to have, for example, each of these objects here not only has the click and the XPath, whatever is behind it, it needs to have that business context, this thing. So if you're using navigator.open by itself in RVL, you don't have this information here. So therefore, it's not possible for the AI to know what were you trying to do. So that's
RVL is
important.
Rapise visual
Visual
language for
language.
new
Sorry,
to
yeah,
that.
that's this thing. That's the codeless view you see here. Thanks for
Yep.
clarifying.
Another question. Is there a way to add smart metadata to manually defined objects in the repository without re-recording them so that self-healing will work?
I believe I would want to double check with our team. I imagine it would because you're basically storing the context here. Now we are storing images as well. So maybe we should check on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always
I'll
afraid
come
of
back
giving
to you,
into the
Alan.
events. Yeah, we'll come back to that one. I'll
Another
ask
one,
our team.
if we use a programmatic approach where we define XPath manually in
Hmm.
JavaScript files
Yeah.
instead of using the AI recorder, can we still benefit from smart actions or self-healing?
If you use smart actions, yes. So what I'll do is I'll show the JavaScript version of it. If we let's do that, and then we can see in action. So let's finish the RVL, and then we can come back and show JavaScript because it'll be a bit easy to see. So one just to say, as you can see here, we've got all of the actions that it's going to take. I can review them individually, and I could say I agree with this and this and this, and I disagree with these. Or I can basically say, well, the application passed. I watched what it did. I watched the screenshots. It's completely valid use of the application. It's not doing something that a user wouldn't do. So I'm going to say apply. So I've now applied all the changes, and you can still go and see what the changes are after the fact. Now I've got my test here. Notice this looks just like the test it did a minute ago. The very first version looked the same. I just changed the URL. The second version with the self-healing after it healed looks the same. Now I've applied the changes. It still looks the same. So from a test design, this is consistent. Meanwhile, the XPath has all changed. Now, just to prove that, I'm going to change I'm going to run the test a third time. So the first time I ran against the old version of the app. The second time I played against the new version and let AI use its magic to fix everything. And now the third time I'm going to have it run against the new version of the app, but we're going to see, is it now able to play after it's healed? And it should therefore play without needing to use AI to do any of the operations. I just changed the name of the book, and I'm doing that because the application itself doesn't let me have the same book name twice. And when I do demos, I forget to do that, and it will throw an error and say you can't use the same book twice, and it looks weird. So that's the only change I'm making, and that's only because I know this application, and it doesn't let me do the same thing, use the same name twice. So let's hit play and let it run, and it's playing back. And look at the speed difference. It's now playing back as fast as the very first time. It'll take about 10 seconds or maybe 12 seconds or so. So, okay, it passed again and again, now back to 12 seconds. So the AI run is 10 times slower and also has the benefit of being able to adapt to changes, but also might adapt to changes that are not intentional. So here we've now got the benefit of a fixed test that now runs back repeatedly, and it runs fast, and it also gives you the certainty that it will play back against what you intended. Now, if you change the application again and do it again, it will potentially do the same thing. It will now heal. Now, I showed the whole test being healed. If, on the other hand, maybe just one part of the application, like one button changed or one link changed, it might only be you're patching one or two things. I mean, it patched everything because it was a completely different application. In many cases, it will only need to patch like, one field or two fields. So again, it doesn't always have to be the whole thing. But the key here is I've had it basically rebuild the entire test for me, but the test looks the same. So this is exactly my set of actions I'm trying to carry out. It's just fix them all. So
Mm.
there were some questions about JavaScript and how it works there. I can jump over and show that. But before I do that, any other questions? Let's look over.
Bong, did
Mm,
we address is self-healing only available during recording? How about when we are just trying to learn the EB app, or we're manually capturing locators and storing it on a JS file?
I'm looking. Yeah, let me read that. Uh, it's something about when
Oh,
you're trying to learn.
web app.
Oh, when you're
Using the
learning.
web
Oh, when
app.
you're using Learn. Okay, so Learn works fine. So anything, yeah, you can do it. It'll work with learning, um, because again, you're picking the object. So self-healing automatically stores when you use the recorder and you do the learn option during recording, that's still going to pick it up just like as if you were doing recording. If you are manually creating objects synthetically, like and just creating them yourself and putting your own XPath, obviously it wouldn't have the context. But what you could do, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, is you could play the test, and then when it plays, it will then run through each of the steps. It will then add the metadata. So there is a way when you're playing the test to have it add that metadata just like it was recording. So as long as you've got a test that's playable, you can have it pick up the additional business context and image context during basically it's recording while playing. Think of it that way. So there is a way to do that. Now, there was a question about what does it look like in JavaScript if you want to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and show you how a JavaScript version of the recording looks like. Again, we seem to have quite a technical audience here. So for those who maybe not as technical, I'm trying to balance the questions from the audience that some people here obviously know Rapise quite well, and there's others who may be more junior, more new to it. So hopefully I'm not, losing people. But in terms of what we just showed, just to recap before we get into JavaScript, I recorded the test against an application which we've had for a while. It's worked fine, and then we have a new version of the app. So we have this version of the application, and then we said we got a new version that the vendor gave us. It's a new drop version, and now I have to test it. And oh my goodness, all my tests are broken. Well, now they're not. You can now fix the test, and this is React. You can do the same thing with the Angular version, which again looks somewhat similar, but is a little bit different like that. So you see, we've got these different versions of the application. And in real life, that's quite common. If you're using, an SAP or Oracle or Salesforce or ServiceNow, they're constantly updating the system all the time. And the idea here is you're not having to constantly change your tests. Now, with some of the major ERPs, There is another thing we already offered before AI, which was our frameworks. So one thing to mention is, as well as using AI to fix things, we also have the ability in Rapise to have different frameworks. So if you are testing a well-known ERP or CRM system, you can always go into the libraries, go to Tools, Libraries, and you can add additional libraries right here, and you could say, well, actually, I'm testing, an AG grid, I'm testing Dynamics, I'm testing Salesforce, SAP. So we do have these pre-built, which Camille mentioned in the slides, these pre-built libraries, and these allow Rapise to know how to test that application as well. And the good news is we're also using AI behind the scenes to build these libraries. We at Inflectra, 2 years ago, we were building these libraries by hand. So if you wanted to test a new control in Salesforce, we had to add that by hand. We're using AI now to build these more quickly. And eventually, for our advanced users, we will be able to share some of this technology so you can build your own libraries and manage them in-house as well. That's all part of the plan.
Yeah,
So
and if you don't have the capability in-house, Inflectra ourselves, as well as partners, can assist you get set up. Where we've seen the model work really well with customers like Deltec and others is having almost a COE where you've got a couple of people who are very skilled in what they do, gets established, and then get set up so that manual testers or others that are testing without needing code are able to run those tests and go from there. But I'm really impressed with all the questions coming through, Bong, especially given you benchmarked the results of Rapise before 9.0. I'm looking forward to hearing further on can we do better than the 70% that Jeff's called out on this YouTube video I've popped in the chat that AWS captured as an interview. And yeah, looking forward to your feedback there. But also I had the question of how mature is the Rapise product. And this is not new. We've had Rapise in the market since 2015 or a little earlier, but it's been on the AWS marketplace since 2015. So that's just how far back and mature the product is. So yeah, really surprised that we've got a very technical audience today, but it is also very easy to use for the non-technical, and that's the hybrid benefit of Rapise.
So I'm going to give a public service announcement. If you are less technical, do not close your eyes and go watch a cat video or something, because I'm going to show you how you do the exact same thing in JavaScript. And if you're not so if code makes you want to scream, don't worry. This is just again for the more technical people. I just want to show you how the self-healing looks. So what I did is I created a second task, which is create new author. Let me close some of these windows so I don't confuse with too many things. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to record now and build out in JavaScript just to show how it would look. So let's go ahead and do recording, create new author, and Chrome. Yeah, let's do that. And okay, and I'm just going to record creating a new author. So I'll just do largely the same thing. So log in, librarian, librarian. Yeah, log in. Sorry, it's late here. My mind went. What am I doing again? Here you go, author, and create new author. And we'll create a new author. I'm going to become an author. I'm very excited. Adam Sandman is an author. My mother will be so proud. Age. Do I have to? Oh, I guess I have to put it. I feel old. Anyway, so there's my age, and I'll log out. And I'm going to hit finish. And now it's going to do the same thing. It's going to encode the step. So again, it's saving the traditional JavaScript objects and the um, um, definitions. It's also going to be saving the intent as well, the business intent. Now, this does take a bit of time. So if you don't plan on using self-healing, don't turn on the AI recorder because it does take longer. So that's one thing to notice, and that's why it is a checkbox. If you're not going to use self-healing for whatever reason, turn that checkbox off, because otherwise it does take longer to create the test. Oh my gosh, we've only got 10 minutes left. How did that happen?
Yeah, that's why I put in the chat for those that have requested a mobile
Wow.
demonstration. We're going to need more time, so just DM me after for a private session.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, these webinars, they always go quicker than you think. I do want to show SureWire. So we'll do the JavaScript and then we'll jump over to SureWire probably, because that gives us 10 minutes. So it's saving the JavaScript version. And the JavaScript version, I just want to show you that so you can see how it looks. And also with smart actions, there's a way to do it without having to have things in the object repository. So there's a bit more flexibility. But again, if you're a coded verse, just think of something else right now while it's doing this. Um, and while it's doing this, I will mention what's coming next, since I've got a bit of a minute or two. The next version, Rapise 9.1, has a new feature called AI Translator. And what AI Translator will do is it will replace the need to do any recording with AI. So if you remember, I had to record this test and then it can heal it. So AI Translator is the next thing. We'll take the manual test steps we already have in Spira, the ones I created using AI at the beginning, and it will be able to generate the appropriate objects and recording automatically, and then use that for playback. So we won't basically need to have the initial recording. It's basically healing from scratch. So imagine that the objects didn't exist, but there's nothing in them. There's no XPath whatsoever. We're basically using AI to run through the application step by step, and then record it and heal it simultaneously. And that's called AI Translator, and that's coming in 9.1. And that means you would be able to take a business description of the actions, like log into the CRM, create a new lead, a new contact, I don't know, add an activity, whatever it is, the steps, and it will basically the AI will run through those set of business steps using the computer use model, but then it's going to record what it's doing as it's doing it. So when you play it back the second time, it can play it back without AI deterministically. And that's again the thing we're trying to do here, which is we want to use AI for what AI is good for, which is figuring things out when you're playing back something, looking for what you're trying to do, context. AI is not so good at doing the same thing repeatedly every time quickly. It makes mistakes, it deviates. And so we don't want to use AI as a testing tool. We want to use AI as an exploring tool and a correcting tool. And so in self-healing, we're using it for correcting. With AI Translator, the next feature coming out, it's going to be using effectively AI to do exploratory testing to then build the regression test that Rapise can then run without AI. So here you can see the version you get using JavaScript with smart actions. So it's different. Unlike the version with the RVL, the visual language, we store the information right here in the text. So if you already have a series of objects like these ones here, like login, you can now augment them. Oh, sorry, this one here. If you go into the objects here, you can augment them directly in line here. So that gives you the advantage. If you already have basically objects and traditional recordings, you can just add the context directly into the JavaScript. You can also embed it into the object definition as well, but you don't have to. You can just simply add it after the fact. So that gives you some more flexibility. It's not as clean looking, honestly, in my opinion, but it does give you the option of doing more things directly. So if you have stuff that's already clicking on things and doing things in code, you can effectively extend your code with context to give self-healing. So hopefully that helps you with, in that use case. So just want to check
Thanks,
the question
Adam.
and answer. Yeah.
No questions. 7 minutes
No.
left. Did you want to
All
show
right.
short?
Let's go SureWire. Okay. And wow, we're running short on time. So let me jump over to SureWire. SureWire is over here. Now the question is, what's SureWire for? Well, I answered the question a little bit already, which was, what is AI not very good at? Which is what I said. It's not very good at doing the same thing consistently. It's really good at figuring things out inconsistently. So when you've got a test that's broken, it's really good at figuring out how to fix it. But when you want to run the same thing hundreds of times, it's not so good. Well, that's the same problem we run into when we use AI, both for testing or just for operational use cases like, a workflow engine or a chatbot. Anytime you're using AI to do the same thing consistently, it's not always very good at that. For example, let's say you have a chatbot that's a customer support agent. You'd want it to be consistently helping people. If it's 99% of the time helping people, but 1% of the time it's being rude and offensive or giving people the wrong information, that's not very helpful. So AI's major weakness is being consistency. And we ran into this when we were building AI in both Spire and Rapise. We ran into it, what we will say it's dreaming. Sometimes it would generate test steps in Spanish. Sometimes with Rapise, it couldn't find the box. It couldn't find the login box. It couldn't find the book management link. It would do it some of the time. So we needed a way to make our AI more consistent and understand how consistent and how accurate it would be over time. And that was the genesis for SureWire. Because if we have problems building AI into our products, I'm sure you have, or other people will have. So anyway, with that being said, how does the beta work? So first of all, you go to SureWire. I'll show you the whole flow. Go to SureWire.ai. Then click on try the SureWire beta or beta, depending on which version of English you're using. Then you need to put in your name, email, company, and title. Hit get my API key. You'll be emailed them with an API key. Now, I already did this ahead of time, so I don't need to do that part. Once you have the key, you just paste the key in. So I'm just going to go over here to my handy dandy password manager, and I'm going to grab my API key and paste it in and sign in. It has a light mode and a dark mode. I think it looks a little cooler in the dark mode, but my machine is set for light. So apologies in advance. Now, there's three ways you can use SureWire. We've got some pre-built scenarios, which are great for playing around with. I'll probably do that today. You can also build your own. And basically both of these two, both the pre-built and the customized, they're using effectively a chatbot that we have running in our account. We've got a series of chatbot agents available that we've got running in our Amazon account. You just need to tell the chatbot, what are you supposed to be doing? And then you put your test plan in. So effectively, the system prompt at the top, that's basically you're telling the tested system how you're supposed to behave. And you could say you are meant to be offensive, rude, and always be unhelpful if you want to create a full negative. And then in the test, you put in what is the intended test. So obviously that's good for playing around with it. So you can either use the first or second option to play around and just see what it does. Once you've gotten that past that and you understand what it's doing, then you actually to do real testing, you go to the third option, and that's where you will put in your API endpoint for your actual any AI tool. It doesn't have to be a chatbot, but it's anything that can respond using a REST API. You put in your bearer token or your API header, and then you put in the response path, and then you put in a message template. There's a format basic where you tell it when you get data back from the API endpoint, this is how we interpret it because we obviously don't know how your application is meant to work. So you put all of this in, and then you basically, and they've got some examples here of different API endpoints you can use and different sample bodies, and then you can basically hit start validation. Now, I haven't got time in 3 minutes to get a third-party agent, so we'll go with one of the pre-builts. So let's take let's see, the senior security advisor. Okay, so the senior security advisor has basically been trained after SureWire flagged its risk. Or actually, let's start with the junior one, because then we'll do the senior one afterwards. Okay. A enthusiastic security chatbot knows the basics, but recommends an insecure method of encrypting passwords. And it thinks that the top 10 vulnerabilities is all you need to know. There's nothing else. It's basically someone's out of college, they've got their first cybersecurity qualification, they think they know everything, and they're going to be testing your system. So let's go ahead and try that one out. So what it's doing now, it takes that test plan, and it takes that definition of the agent, and it basically determines the AI is now determining what kind of agents do I need. So one thing to mention with SureWire is we're not asking you to say, do a SOC 2 agent, have a vulnerability checking agent, or a data leakage agent, or a phishing agent. We're not having you define that. The AI reads your test plan, and it basically on the fly decides what kind of inputs do I need. So it creates dynamically, in this case, I said 5 because this was the time. It's creating 5 AI agents on the fly, and it determines what are the 5 that it thinks it will need to attempt to test this particular application. It then creates 5 judge agents that it also is creating. And then there's an orchestration layer which orchestrates everything. It's now orchestrating all of that. And then when it's finished, it will then now analyze the results, hopefully. And if we haven't got time, I've got one. There's one I prepared earlier as well. But it's basically using that input together with your agent to come up with the results and the output. Just creating the batches. While it's doing that, any questions?
None so far.
Okay. And this is a SaaS application running. So you basically give it your API endpoint. In terms of the deployment models for SureWire, currently it's a SaaS app that runs entirely in our environment and it connects to your API endpoint. We're also looking at other deployment options. For example, can it run privately in your AWS account or Azure account, or can it run in Salesforce, Agentforce, things like that. So we recognize that people are going to want to have it run in different environments for in different use cases. If you're building an agent, like you're an agent ISV, you'll want it running in your building account, like your Amazon or AWS account. If you're deploying third-party agents like a Salesforce agent or an Office 365 agent, and you didn't build it, you just simply are deploying it, you might want a SaaS app like this one. So we recognize there are some different use cases. Anyway, so it ran the tests, and it basically says there's a 77% quality score, 23% risk score, and a 62% confidence score. The confidence comes from the number of tests we ran. Now, we only generated 5 agents. So when you generate 5 agents, generally the confidence will be low. You need to run more agents. So if you went to 10 agents, the confidence will be higher because it will try more permutations and more variations. And so what it does is in the executive summary, it tells you the overall, what it found and why it's giving you a 77% quality score. So is this cybersecurity researching agent that's meant to be testing your system for vulnerabilities? How good is it? And it gives examples here about where it fell short. And what we find is that this summary is very good at giving you the overall, business context of how it did. But it's really individual findings that are very useful because that shows you, what did it fail at? Where is it low at? And that helps you fix your agent or maybe change your test. So it failed on cryptographic. For example, it always recommended this particular hashing algorithm, but there's some limitations to it. It's a good agent, a good algorithm, but there are better ones, and it gives some examples. It gave some examples about using secure transport layer, response completeness, but it gave good code examples and gave practical guidance. So it felt like the system was helpful, gave good code examples to help the developers who were trying to secure their systems, but some of the other information was not as complete as it could be. And then it gives you a definition of why it's got a quality assessment of 77, and then what's the risk score. So if you were deciding to release this cybersecurity agent into production, you would have to understand what is the risk score, and then going ahead, what are the risks you're taking on. And so it gives it here in a very descriptive, qualitative way with the quantitative examples baked in. And currently, that's what you're getting. The future plans will be things like, well, this is a great test result. Can I get it into Spyro? That's part of the plan. Can I put it into other tools? Obviously, can we get more quantitative data? Can we get more specific examples? Can we get code samples? Absolutely. So again, this is just the first version, and that's why we want your feedback. But the idea is you can run a whole bunch of different use cases. This was a very technical use case on cybersecurity. You could also do maybe less technical ones, for example. You could do things like if I go back to the homepage, I can do something around maybe a chatbot for back to our librarian example. Let's say I want to be able to see how does my chatbot help people get their books. And rather than running the validation, I should mention, because it does take a few minutes, if you want to see some of these and what they look like, we've pre-run these agents that you see, and we've got the report ready to go. So if you want to see what the reports look like, this is just a preview. Now, if I run this report again, if I hit that start validation, notice that the quality score and the risk score won't be the same every time because this is non-deterministic. This is AI. Every time we run these tests, it's never exactly the same. So here it gives you an example of this library chatbot. The person knew a lot, the chatbot knew a lot about the library, it gave good recommendations on the books, but its tone wasn't very good. It was not very professional. It was edgy and sarcastic and probably made inferences based on what books you chose and didn't necessarily, maintain a neutral professional tone. That was by design. It's meant to, obviously in this case, fail. But you can see here, you may fail in some areas and pass in others. But if I run this again, it won't be exactly the same because again, even though it's the same rubric, it's the same test plan, the AI is dynamically creating what it thinks are the right probes, the right tests to test out these four different areas it's looking at: helpfulness, professionalism, topic boundaries, and handling different users. And if you're asking, where do these come from? Where does it get these from? These come from the test plan. So if I go to the option to customize, it comes from this here. So if I was to run this test, it's going to be testing for on topic, enthusiasm, and it's going to verify that off-topic questions are handled correctly and its tone is consistent. So those are the three or four different parts of your test plan. So the more you write in here, the greater the number of things it's going to test for. Basically, these become your test cases. But it's all natural language, very simple to use. And then you can obviously customize the system prompt if you use this middle option and try out making different chatbots on the fly. So again, just
It
a quick
almost
look
seems like
at it.
magic when I
Yeah.
had a go. It's
Yeah,
very elegant, Adam. So thank you for
thank you.
showing that.
Any
No
questions on
worries
it?
about it.
I can run a few minutes over. Any questions on SureWire while we have people? Let me go to. Oh, I do see some. Hold on, I think. Oh, maybe that's the. No, those are all
That
from
was
the
me
earlier. Yeah.
sharing some resources there for anyone new to us. There's a lot of existing customers on the call as well, but maybe it's your first time seeing SureWire. Feel free to drop me a message on any feedback you have, whether this is useful, whether it's too far in advance. We're curious. The beauty of Inflectra is that we're privately owned and you get to have a say and input into the product roadmap. So there was a number of customers who are on-prem, like in defense, who have asked, will there be AI available for the on-prem version of customers? And the answer is yes, that's currently in development. Another customer said, can I just simply upload a tech spec and have that tested? Because I'm not really a tester by nature. And the answer to that is yes. That is also coming in the next couple of releases, right, Adam?
Yeah, actually, I can
So
talk. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. Those two, because that's actually really interesting. Yeah, the on-premise AI, we're going to have a new feature called AI Connect. It's basically going to be all of the old Spire apps that we created for like OpenAI and ChatGPT. We're rolling them into a new single super-powered one, and it's going to be updated and enhanced with new capabilities. And so that will be for those who have their own LLM on-premise or their own fine-tuned LLM. And that will be something that we are, based on your feedback, we'll be developing. And in terms of the idea, which we've had a few demos already last week with another customer, where they said, "I want to upload a PDF of my requirements. I just want to test it. Do it for me." And so the vision we'll have is you will upload your PDF or your Word document into Spira using Inflectra AI. You'll push a button, it decomposes that into requirements, into test cases, does all the analysis. Now you've got your business context. Now, of course, you can also pull in user stories from Jira as well. And then you will download that into Rapise using MCP or existing integration. And then in Rapise, you'll just say, play the test, and it will use the new AI translator that's coming out in the next release to translate that natural language test, no recording needed. And then when you go back to the Spire and say, well, can we add this new feature? And then the application changes, self-healing will then fix it. So that's definitely the vision, is that end-to-end from business to technology and at the speed of AI.
thanks, Adam. If there's
Welcome.
no more questions, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, what are you waiting for? Give it a go and share feedback. Thanks.
It's live. It's live. Yeah.
Yeah, it's live. Same with the Rapise self-healing. In the old days, it was recognizing button, move from left to right. Now it's complete UI changes, as you saw. Yeah, keep the feedback coming and keep the questions coming. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.